When I returned from lunch, I found my mother being yelled at on the landing of the company's staircase. Dressed as a janitor, my mother was apologizing profusely to the president's daughter, who was wearing a wet suit. She seemed as though she might prostrate herself at any moment. My mother was a single mother and she has always worked as a part-timer or a contract worker. Therefore, I tried very hard to find a job hoping to make my mother's life easier, and I was finally hired as a full-time employee at a well-known industry-leading company. Now that I am able to earn, I wanted my mother, who had struggled all these years, to quit working and take it easy. However, even though I was an employee at a major company, the salary was not particularly high in the early years. You have to repay scholarships from university, don't you? If I quit my job, we'll be stuck in the same tight financial situation as before, won't we? With that, my mother continued working even after I got a job. Around 2 years later, my mother actually started working at my company as a janitor. She applied for the janitor position when her contract of her previous job expired, and she happened to be assigned to my company. Both my mother and I were initially surprised, but now we have gotten used to seeing each other at work. Even our colleagues know that the janitor is my mother, and it seems that they greet her every time they pass her in the hallway. You have a lot of nice people in your company, don't you? When she was first assigned, my mother used to say that happily. My mother was someone who seemed to enjoy her work so much, but now she is apologizing to the president's daughter, Cynthia, in the stairwell. What have you done? It's an important suit. It's all dirty now. Cynthia, who is wearing what appeared to be a perfectly tailored suit, is visibly angry as the front of her suit is drenched. There is a tipped bucket and a puddle of dirty water with floating debris on the floor. Judging from the situation, it seems that my mother accidentally poured the dirty water from the bucket onto Cynthia. Cynthia is the daughter of the CEO who joined the company after me, and everybody was being careful with her and the company. I don't personally know her, but I've heard that she is a well-raised woman who doesn't act entitled despite being the CEO's daughter. However, it seems that when the title of the CEO's daughter is added, everyone becomes unsure of how to interact with her. Because of that, Cynthia is a little out of place in the company, and she is now cursing with a high-pitched voice at the cleaning lady, my mother, who is apologizing profusely. I will contact the management company and ask them to fire you. I am truly sorry. I hurriedly ran over to help my mother and apologized alongside her. I deeply apologize for her rudeness. Who are you? I answered while looking down. She is my mother. I am truly sorry for her actions. I will pay for the cleaning fees, so please, could you please spare her from being fired? I don't need any cleaning fee, really. Please don't say that. I took out some cash from my wallet. At that moment, Cynthia's gaze was fixed on my face and she had a puzzled expression, but I offered the cash anyway. I have terrible burn scars on my face. When I was a child, I accidentally knocked over a kettle with which I was boiling some water on the stove and ended up scalded by it. She must have noticed the blemished skin on my face. That's why she had a puzzled expression on her face. She was staring at me in surprise and suddenly her expression changed as if she realized something. Then she turned around and walked away without saying a word. Please, wait. If you don't want to accept the payment for the cleaning, please let me give a handkerchief at least. I chased after Cynthia, thinking it would be uncomfortable for her to stay wet, so I offered her a handkerchief. However, she didn't even glance at me. I'm fine. She just said this and walked down the hallway. Oh no, I stood frozen in place. I must have really upset her. My mother's shoulders slumped and she said, I'm sorry. It's my fault for being careless. She's the president's daughter, right? If you become uncomfortable at work because of me... It's okay. Don't worry about it, Mom. I didn't think that everything was fine, but I had no choice but to say so because I didn't want to see my mother become even more depressed. After that, I worked in a gloomy mood. Since I offended the president's daughter, it seemed to me that I deserved any kind of warnings. The events of the day had already spread throughout the company. Due to the burns on my face, even the people who don't know me recognized me. By the next day, I had already become famous within the company as the person who upset Cynthia. My colleagues who didn't want to upset the president or his daughter started to keep their distance from me. I let out a small sigh. As my mother had feared, I became completely uncomfortable at work, and about 2 weeks after the dirty water incident, I was finally summoned to the president's office. On the way to the president's office, I ran into my mother in a janitor uniform. It seemed that she had also been summoned at the same time. This must be about that dirty water incident without a doubt. I wondered if I would be scolded, receive a pay cut, or be fired in the worst case scenario. I kept having those dark thoughts and I nervously made my way to the president's office and knocked. "Excuse me." When I entered the room, the president and his daughter, Cynthia, were there as I expected. "I apologize for making you come all the way here." I greeted the president, who said that, and his daughter standing next to him. "I'm so sorry for staining your daughter's clothes." My mother apologized to them as well. "I am truly, truly sorry for my carelessness. I can't apologize enough. I will definitely make amends, so could you please reconsider punishing my son? He was only trying to protect me." "Mom." I was touched as I saw my mother passionately pleading my innocence with a trembling voice. "Please don't apologize, both of you." The voice of the president was surprisingly calm. I raised my face, feeling confused. "I asked you to come today because my daughter wants to talk to both of you about something. Cynthia." "Yes." Prompted by the president, Cynthia stepped forward. Her expression was not filled with anger or contempt, but for some reason she looked apologetic. "I deeply apologize for the other day." Cynthia apologized sincerely, just like I did earlier. "Excuse me?" My voice and my mother's voice overlapped. Cynthia raised her face with a solemn expression and said, "In fact, that suit was actually my late mother's. More precisely, it was her suit that had been altered to fit me. It was a very precious item to me, so when it got wet, I couldn't help but lose my temper. I apologize sincerely for my outburst and the offensive remarks. Furthermore, that day was..." To summarize Cynthia's story, it was like this. Everyone was being very careful with her and the company, as we all know. Out of everybody's consideration, such as not assigning difficult tasks to the president's daughter and not wanting to upset her, she wasn't given much work in her department and was only made to do simple tasks. Cynthia was becoming tired of such a daily routine. I wanted to challenge myself more and fit in with everybody by putting in effort and earning recognition for my abilities. For Cynthia, the consideration given to her by others simply because she was the president's daughter was nothing but agony. So one day I said to my boss, "Please give me a chance too." And then Cynthia was chosen to participate in a major project being carried out in collaboration with another company. By the time she fully understood the project details and was able to keep up with the meetings, Cynthia was entrusted with an important presentation. It was her first major assignment, so she put all her effort into it. Cynthia had her late mother's suit altered and wore it as her power suit for the presentation. That day of that presentation was the day I was drenched with water. She wore her mother's suit to do her best at the presentation. However, due to nervousness and lack of experience, she couldn't respond effectively to the questions. I didn't expect everything to go smoothly from the beginning, of course, but I was shocked that I couldn't fulfill my role properly when I was given such a big project. When she returned to the company feeling down, my mother slipped on the stairs and accidentally splashed dirty water with which she cleaned the floor on her. With all the shock piling up, she couldn't help but lose her temper. "I'm really sorry. I know it's not mature to lose my temper like that, but I couldn't control my emotions because of everything that was going wrong. I yelled and made you feel awful. I'm truly sorry." "No, not at all." When Cynthia apologized to her, my mother became flustered. "I'm the one who dirtied your mother's suit. It's such a precious item. I'm truly sorry. I don't know what I can do to make it up to you, but at the very least, please let me do something to make amends." "The stain wasn't too bad, so it's okay," the president said. "I have sent it for cleaning, and they assured me that the stains will come off easily. No need to worry about compensation. Please don't be concerned." "Oh, is that true? That's a relief." My mother heaves a sigh of relief. "I wanted to thank both of you personally," the president said. Excuse me? I asked. You wanted to thank us? Yes, it was only when I heard about this incident that I realized my daughter's mental state might be unstable. She never got angry or exploded like that before, so I thought it was important to make time to talk to her. And it was only when I listened to her that I found out she was feeling uncomfortable at work and experiencing strong stress. Without this incident, I might have continued to misunderstand Cynthia. Thinking that way, this incident was actually a blessing for me too. Thank you both for giving us an opportunity to have a conversation with our daughter. No, not like that. My mother and I were both taken aback by the unexpected words of gratitude from the president, and then the president turned towards Cynthia. So, Cynthia, there was something else you wanted to talk to him about, right? He said. Yes. Cynthia nodded quietly. Then she took out a slightly worn amulet from her pocket. Cynthia extended it towards me. Mr. Jenkins, do you recognize this amulet? The amulet was embroidered with the words, academic success. I looked at the amulet and tilted my head for a few seconds. Oh, I remember. Could this possibly be? So, it was Mr. Jenkins after all. A scene from a winter day during my last year of high school has come back to me. It was the morning of the university entrance exam. I was asked for directions to the hospital by a girl who was around the same age as me at the time and whom I didn't know. She seemed desperate and said she wasn't familiar with the transportation in Toronto. I thought to myself, indeed, taking trains in Toronto are complicated. How can I explain it to her so she can understand easily? After much thought, I ended up accompanying her to the nearest station to the hospital. I had left home quite early to study intensively for the final push at the exam venue, so I had plenty of time. Because of that, I wasn't able to do any last-minute cramming for the exam, but on the train heading to the hospital's nearest station, I heard about the girl's situation. Her mother is currently hospitalized and she is on her way to the hospital. Her father is usually busy with work, earning money for her mother's medical expenses, and he doesn't have time to come home. As a result, she has been living at her paternal grandparents' house in the countryside, and it's the first time for her to come to Toronto since she came last time when she was in elementary school. Last night, she received news that her mother's condition had worsened, so she took the first train to Toronto. That's why she wanted to go to the hospital as soon as possible. However, she got lost due to the complex transportation network in Toronto. She was truly grateful to me for helping her out in such a situation. She ran through the ticket gate of the nearest station to the hospital, and I handed her an amulet I had at that time. I was worried about sending her off alone because she seemed almost on the verge of tears. However, I had my own exams to attend to, so I couldn't accompany her. I'm sorry. I am just a high school student preparing for exams, so this is all I have. But I hope your mother gets better, and I'm sending my prayers as well. What I gave her at that time was an amulet embroidered with the words academic success. I was the one who was lost on the road at that time, Cynthia said. Afterwards, I safely made it to the hospital and was able to have a brief conversation with my mother. At that time, if I had been lost for just 5 more minutes, I don't think I would have been able to see my mother. That's why I am extremely grateful to that boy. You reminded me of that day when I saw you the other day, Mr. Jenkins. Because of this. I pointed to the large burn scar on my face. Surely young Cynthia remembered the scar on my face. Yes. Cynthia hesitantly nodded. If Mr. Jenkins was that boy, I was afraid I had returned evil for good, so I wanted to confirm. Once again, thank you very much for what you did back then. I am truly, truly sorry for shouting at your mother the other day. Please allow me to express my gratitude and apology as well. Following Cynthia, the president chimed in. Thank you for helping my daughter see my wife one last time. I also apologize for my daughter's recent behavior. The president and Cynthia thanked me and apologized to me. Oh, no. Please, President, please don't do this. And you too, Cynthia. The president turned towards my mother and said to her, Mrs. Jenkins, you have a wonderful son. Oh, you are too generous with your words. Don't be so modest. Besides, you yourself have become quite well known in our company. Pardon me? There's a person among the janitors who greets me very warmly. When I am greeted by that person with a smile, even if I am feeling down at work, I can become more positive. I have been hearing that kind of story a lot lately. That janitor is you, isn't it? That is. Although my mother couldn't say anything out of modesty, I thought to myself that it might be her. I also heard the same from my colleagues. Your mother, who does the cleaning, is really friendly, isn't she? I have been told this multiple times. Thanks to your cleaning and greetings, the atmosphere in the company is gradually becoming cleaner. I have a feeling like that. You must have a good compatibility with our company culture and the employees. Well, thank you. This is a suggestion, but would you like to work at our company as a full-time employee? Sorry? You are currently being dispatched from another cleaning management company to work here, right? How about switching to direct employment with us? You may have to do some administrative work as well, but that would provide more job stability. Of course, if it suits your preference. My mother and I were surprised and looked at each other. Can something like this really happen? My mother had a look of disbelief on her face. May I really do that? She asked. Of course, you will surely become a great mood maker for our company. My mother's transfer procedure started on that day and proceeded without any problems. A few days later, my mother became an employee at the same company as me. Since we were in different departments, I didn't know the details, but it seemed that my mother had done some office work as a part-timer, so she was surprisingly quick to pick up her new job. She also got along with other employees, and now she occasionally goes out for lunch with Cynthia. Maybe Cynthia is projecting her mother's image onto me, my mother said. As for Cynthia, recently she has been given proper assignments at work and has gradually started to show her father's inherited talent. With the gradual recognition of her abilities, she has gained confidence, stabilized emotionally, and no longer seems to become emotional as she did before. It seems that Cynthia has also found a place to shine, and I feel relieved somehow. I have to work even harder so as not to lose to Cynthia or my mother. Feeling inspired by the two of them while I was thinking such things, I started my work with renewed determination.